Today is a day that ends in Y, so MAGA media star Matt Walsh is trolling people on Twitter. Hey guys, welcome back to the show, your home for independent and nonpartisan commentary and analysis on politics, media, internet drama, and more. This one has a little bit of all of the above because we are going to check in with the latest controversy or brouhaha involving Daily Wire host and MAGA media star Matt Walsh, who you guys know I'm a huge fan of, and he's a big fan of me. Just kidding. Not at all, in fact. But regardless, I go into everything with an open mind and say, maybe sometimes I agree with him. So when I saw him trending and clicked in, who knows? Maybe I could be here defending him based on what he said. But then I saw that he was, I don't even know how to describe this, but downplaying the struggles of pregnant women and suggesting that at least some of what they struggle with in terms of depression after giving birth is just selfishness. Yes, that is what he said in a tweet that has since gone viral and got a lot of pushback, including from many conservative and Republican women, which I certainly understand. Here is Matt Walsh's tweet that's gone viral. He writes, "A lot of people aren't going to want to hear this, but much of the quote-unquote depression that parents, and not just moms, suffer after childbirth is due not so much to hormones, but to the fact that children, especially babies, are demanding and difficult and require us to subordinate our own needs and desires for their sake. The more selfish you are, the more of an adjustment it's going to be." So, listen, this is a much broader statement, but it does come in the context of this ongoing trial of this woman, Lindsay Clancy, I believe. I haven't followed it very closely. But anyway, this was just a broader extrapolation or take that he decided to offer up on the whole issue of postpartum depression, which is, of course, a very real and extensively documented and studied psychological phenomenon that many women face after giving birth. And so there's a couple things that immediately piss people off. The idea that depression is in scare quotes. Oh, actually... So you're just downplaying the struggles that women go through after birth. And he says, and not all parents, but he also says after childbirth. So it's clearly we're mostly talking about women here. And then he says that at least a large part of this, or much of the depression, again in scare quotes, which is diabolical, that women face is not because of actual hormonal and psychological phenomenons that are demonstrated and documented and play out that form postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, other sorts of medical issues that women face and struggle with. It's not that, or at least some of it's not that. It's selfishness. These women are just selfish, and now they have to pay a lot of attention, and the baby becomes a big part of their life, and that's why they're upset and depressed. And it's dude, first off, sources, the bong hit I just ripped, right? It's you're making assertions about medical and psychological phenomenon that you don't understand or know anything about. You are downplaying the experiences, at least in part. I mean, he's not saying that none of it's hormonal or that it's never real, but it's you're still casting aspersions and using the word selfish to discuss women who've just given birth and suggesting that some of their struggles are just their own selfishness. Yeah, that's crazy. That's baseless. That's going to be received incredibly poorly. And the community note that got appended to this was diabolical. It says, medical sources say postpartum depression is multifactorial. Rapid drops in estrogen and progesterone after birth are key biological factors, along with sleep loss and adjustment stress. It is not primarily attributed to selfishness. And then they link the Cleveland Clinic and the Mayo Clinic, two of the most foremost medical institutions in the country. And it's funny, the community note says it is not primarily attributed to selfishness. In fact, it's really not attributed to selfishness at all by actual doctors or scientists or people who have studied this. The real factors that cause these, severe struggles that women go through after childbirth are these hormonal issues, these different things, and the lack of sleep and other stuff. So yeah, I don't know why there's any need to downplay or deny that or to blame people for it. Now, ultimately, people are still responsible for their actions, absent, the most extreme levels of psychosis, but None of that requires downplaying or dismissing the very real struggles that women go through. And I totally fail to see how any of this is like pro family or pro childbirth or pro family formation or any of this. It really seems like this kind of thing, downplaying the struggles of young mothers, is the worst way to encourage people to have more kids, or to say we stand for family values. You should actually be supporting them, not suggesting at least some of their struggle is their own selfishness. Anyway, I want to read you some pushback that primarily came from right-wing women. So Kylie Jane Kremer wrote of Matt Walsh's tweet, "This is genuinely diabolical," and then people wonder why so many women run screaming from the right. Matt Walsh is quite literally embodying the caricature the left paints of the good old boy Christian nationalist right and proving their point for them. Reducing postpartum depression and serious psychiatric illness to women being quote-unquote selfish and hating their children isn't Christian, compassionate, or medically serious. It's cruel. I honestly cannot believe he posted this. Well, I can believe he posted this because this is who Matt Walsh is he's kind of the living embodiment of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where he makes extremely confident pronouncements about subjects he knows not very much about, and then he has this like recurring commitment to just saying outlandish things as rage bait to trigger people or draw attention to himself, and doesn't seem to really care or face meaningful consequences in terms of audiences abandoning him, as I would think they would when he does this kind of thing. With Caroline Leavitt stepping down, who's going to be Trump's new press secretary? Well, according to our channel partners at Kalshi, people think there's a 35% chance Alina Habba will get the job, whereas Anna Kelly has a 27% chance, and CNN commentator Scott Jennings is in with a 15% chance. Personally, I think Scott Jennings would be a pretty good choice, because whether you agree with him or not, he's pretty used to operating in a hostile media environment over at CNN, and he is pretty reliable as a defender of the Trump administration who doesn't get riled up too easily. But if you guys have thoughts on who the next press secretary will be, or any of Kalshi's other politics-related markets, just go ahead over to Kalshi, the first CFTC-regulated exchange dedicated to trading on the outcome of future events, and use code BRADP when you sign up on the website or on the mobile app on your phone to get $20 free when you trade $20 now. So more other pushback here. This is from Andrew Egger, a journalist. He wrote, "My wife is an extraordinarily selfish person, an extremely hard worker, and was incredibly excited to become a mother. Postpartum depression still hit her like a truck. What is even the point of this?" That is actually a very good question. What was the point of Matt Walsh's take? Right? There's no basis to it. He's not like contributing to some ongoing discourse about postpartum depression. It just seemed like he wanted to troll women, or like and get it. I guess it got him the attention he ordered. It went viral. He trended on X. But like, what was the productive purpose of this incendiary statement? I'm not sure there was one. Another conservative woman, Brittany Hughes, wrote on X, "I went through a solid 8 weeks after my first, where I dealt with irrational fear of being alone, random bouts of extreme emotion or numbness, anxiety that would hit almost out of nowhere, and I wanted nothing more than to be a mom to my most favorite little human. This is a stupid and baseless take." The conservative Daily Wire writer Cassie Akiva wrote on X, "Or it's being severely sleep deprived and having a massive hormone crash," kind of gently rebuking him for the suggestion that it's at all because of women's selfishness that they experience depression and struggles after giving birth. Another conservative woman, Jessica O'Donnell, wrote, "Nope. Not on this one. Nope on this one," on X in response to his thing. And then the journalist from Reason Magazine, Belly Binion, wrote on X, "Matt Walsh's entire shtick is taking stale, antiquated talking points and repackaging them as groundbreaking truths that only he is brave enough to share. Quote unquote, a lot of people aren't going to want to hear this. Yes, Matt, because you sound like a moron who has never read a book." Unfortunately, no lies detected. He does, in fact, sound like all of those things, and I just don't appreciate this rage bait style of commentary that he leans back upon, and it just seems to not really care about making substantive points about these topics, just these assertions confidently made with little regard for, the fact that they're going to obviously rub people along the wrong way, even though actually that's probably a point, so actually there probably is regard for that. But more importantly, it's like, what was achieved by this? other than antagonizing women and downplaying their struggles and telling them that part of it's just because they're selfish. That seems diabolical to me. And it, once again, seems like the exact opposite of the message you would want to send if you were actually, a Christian conservative who wants more people to have kids and more women to choose to become mothers and all this stuff. It's like, maybe you should be supporting them then, not pushing medical misinformation designed to victim blame and downplay their actual postpartum experiences. Crazy take. Maybe I'm just woke. That's my woke take of the day, guys. And then here's the thing that pisses me the most off about all of this. And it's unfortunately kind of a microcosm for Matt Walsh and his life's work. Somebody on X asked him, any data to support this, or just, no? Obviously referencing Candace Owens, who says, we don't know, but we know. And then Matt Walsh replies, data, I have raised 6 kids. That isn't data. That is literally the opposite of data. That is called anecdotal experience, which is by definition not data. And I love the idea. So he made sweeping conclusions about postpartum experiences of women who've given birth. And when asked for what evidence or data, he cites his personal observations of one woman, his wife, and their 6 kids. What? So wait, first off, if I was his wife, I would be pissed, because apparently he thinks the only reason she struggled after childbirth, or part of it, he didn't say only, but part of it was just her own selfishness, which I would be fuming if I was his wife and he put that on X. If I had carried 6 babies for this man, and then my struggles after giving birth to them, he's partially attributing to my own selfishness, I'd be fuming. But regardless, that's between them. The idea that you could extrapolate from your own observations with your 6 kids to make a declarative conclusion about a population wide among women who've given birth, medical experience, and official diagnosed condition with a whole variety of psychological and medical literature surrounding it is just anti-intellectual. It's just deeply, deeply unserious. Right? It's obviously that isn't how science is done. That's not how conclusions about medicine or human psychology can ever be reached in any sort of actually rigorous or meaningful sense. So he's not even saying, well, I've read a lot of literature about postpartum depression, and there's actually some evidence to suggest this, and here's why I believe this, and this and that and that. Because then, listen, I am somebody who believes things can be up for debate. And there isn't just like one expert unanimous opinion that must be declared indisputable. But if you're going to challenge things, and especially in ways that are so incendiary, you should have some actual evidence. Not just cite the data are my 6 kids. That's not what data means. In fact, that is definitionally not data, Matt Walsh. But he just loves to do this. Just make these sweeping, broad pronouncements and troll people and just also like opine on so many things he knows so little about. And I don't understand what it is about our media ecosystem and environment that creators like this thrive and have these massive audiences and successful careers, even though they're so deeply committed to anti-intellectualism, to trolling over any form of rigorous analysis, and seem to thumb their nose at a lot of their own viewers in ways that are not even substantiated. Because obviously it's okay to say things that will upset your audience, but you should probably only do that when those things are actually true, or you at least have actual evidence or reasons to believe them, not just to troll people. I don't know. It got him the attention he ordered, but I also wanted to bring up this old tweet where he wrote he was complaining about Pete Buttigieg having paternity leave, and he wrote, the thing about paternity leave is there isn't much for a dad to do when the baby is a newborn, especially if mom is breastfeeding. His main role is to take care of mom as she recovers, but of course that doesn't apply to Buttigieg, so I'm not sure why he needs paternity leave at all. So Matt, you might not be the best equipped to discuss this subject and to tell women who've just given birth that part of the reason they're sad is because of their own selfishness. If you think that quote, and this is a quote from his tweet, there isn't much for dad to do when the baby is a newborn. I don't know what universe you're living in, but I have several friends with who have multiple babies and have young children, and they're loving and involved and active dads, so they do a lot. They get up with the baby in the middle of the night, they change diapers, they soothe the baby, they hold like, there's literally so much they do, but I guess if in his situation, he's saying, "Well, I don't have to do any of it anyway, so the only reason you'd be sad is if or there's not that much for me to do." So I guess if you're a dad and you're sad, or if you're a mom and you're sad, it's like, maybe you're just being selfish. You actually sound like the selfish one here, Matt, and once again, I can't help but feel bad for his wife, but anyway, yeah. That's what's trending on X.com right now. Conservative commentators having a super normal one and not being at all unhinged trolls. Other than that, Matt Walsh, you're doing amazing. You guys will have to let me know what you think in the comments below, especially the women. I want to hear from y'all, the women who've had kids and husbands who've been around the block and seen this firsthand. What do you think of Matt Walsh's insightful medical analysis about postpartum depression? And do let me know in the comments. Do make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you aren't yet, do hit the like button and do consider becoming a channel member to support my independent commentary. I don't just call it the left or call it the right. I genuinely try to just be an honest broker and call balls and strikes. So that's unfortunately not the best business model. Maybe if I was more of a rage-baiting troll like Matt Walsh, I'd have millions of subscribers, but I don't. So I do need support from viewers like you. Hit the join button or click the link in the description to become a channel member now. And we'll leave it there for this one and be back with more real soon.